When she moved into Swizz and them's house to work on the music with him, he was still married to his wife.
Long before Alicia Keys became the face of serenity and artistic purity in the blended family storyline, there was a woman whose emotional foundation carried the weight of an empire she did not agree to build. That woman was Mashonda, a name often spoken as a footnote but never given the full gravity of her role. Her story didn't begin in the scandal. It began decades earlier, in Harlem, where resilience wasn't a choice but a requirement. Mashonda wasn't born into privilege or insulation. She grew up in one of the most defining cultural hubs in America, Harlem in the 80s and 90s, where music wasn't just entertainment but identity. She learned early that expression was survival. By the time she reached her teens, she had already mastered the art of turning emotional complexity into melody. Her pen wasn't just a talent, it was her lifeline. This identity became the soil from which her entire adult life grew. Her marriage to Swizz Beatz was not the glitzy, larger-than-life fairy tale the world later imagined. It began in the trenches of ambition, two creatives hustling through New York, determined to leave fingerprints on the culture. He was ascending rapidly, accelerating toward global recognition. She was grounded, building her own voice, creating space for a career that required both vulnerability and grit. Together they believed they were shaping a future. Love, in their minds, was a shared project. But even in those early years, the imbalance was already present. Swizz's career began to explode at a speed that left no room for anything else. Not domestic presence, not emotional consistency, not marital accountability. Mashonda became the stabilizer, the emotional infrastructure behind a man the world assumed was unstoppable. Her sacrifices weren't symbolic. They were daily, tangible, and unnoticed by the world that only saw the headlines he was creating. The unraveling wasn't sudden. It started slowly. Missed calls, late nights, explanations that carried more noise than logic. Anyone who has ever been the last to know can recognize the pattern. A shift in tone, a new quietness, a different kind of distance. Mashonda felt the truth long before she had the language to express it. What the public later framed as drama was simply a woman realizing that her family was moving on without her consent.
My son's interaction based on the energy that he was feeling from his father.
When Alicia Keys entered the frame, Mashonda wasn't just losing a marriage, she was losing the dream she had built piece by piece, often alone. The moment she posted her now infamous public letter was not an emotional outburst. It was the last remaining weapon available to a woman being erased in real time. She was fighting not for revenge, but for acknowledgement. For a moment, her voice finally pierced the narrative being crafted against her. The internet painted her as emotional. The tabloids painted her as jealous, but the truth was far simpler. She was honest. She was wounded. She was human, and in that honesty, she revealed the first crack in what would eventually become the most polished family harmony narrative Hollywood had ever consumed. But even then, Mashonda didn't yet realize she was being prepared for a much larger role.
I couldn't get to Alicia before I healed our relationship.
Yeah.
Once the public became aware of the emotional wreckage behind the scenes, the narrative became a crisis, not a romantic scandal, not a messy divorce, but a brand emergency. In industries where image is currency, infidelity isn't just a moral failure, it is a liability. And Swizz Beatz was more than an artist, he was a rising brand. Alicia Keys was even bigger, a global symbol of womanhood, empowerment and integrity. That image could not coexist with the perception of being the other woman. So a new strategy was born, the blended family narrative.
We were able to talk about how do we get Alicia involved.
To the untrained eye, it looked like healing. Two women choosing unity over conflict, rebuilding the broken pieces of a fractured household. But to those who understand Hollywood's machinery, it was clear the narrative was the product, and Mashonda was the centerpiece of the strategy. Because without Mashonda's participation, nothing could be rehabilitated. The reconciled image required her face, not Alicia's, not Swizz's. The forgiveness had to originate from the woman who had been hurt. Her acceptance was the passport that legitimized the relationship. This is why the book Blend became such a critical element. What the public perceived as a guide to harmonious co-parenting was, to critics, the documented evidence of a woman carrying emotional labor for two people who had benefited from her silence. The book painted Mashonda as evolved, wise, healed. It painted Alicia as gracious, empathetic, and Swizz as transformed. Inside the industry, however, it was viewed as a carefully engineered rebranding. The polished family photos, the holiday gatherings, the birthday tributes, the staged unity, these weren't accidents, they were strategy. Public healing is powerful PR. Reconciliation can erase scandal, and when sustained long enough, it rewrites memory. For years, the trio perfected their choreography, but the image was only as strong as Swizz's ability to stay aligned with it, and that's where the story almost collapsed. The moment Miss Jones dropped the allegation of a secret relationship between Swizz Beatz and Lala Anthony, the quiet stability of the blended family image shattered.
Right? Saying, I work for Swizz and I need you to know that him and Lala have been having an affair.
Whether the rumor was true or not was irrelevant. The real damage was that it was believable. The public remembered how Swizz moved the last time he denied something. They remembered the smoke that came before the fire. His denial was swift, too swift, just a digital swipe meant to suffocate the rumor. Alicia's response was even more telling. Within days, a new track titled Lala appeared, immediately interpreted as a smokescreen. The timing was surgical. Release art before the scandal becomes a narrative. The song didn't erase the whispers, but it redirected them. The public focus moved to the music, not the accusation, and just like that, the machine corrected itself. The rumors faded. The blended family remained intact. The couple continued their red carpet coordination, and Mashonda maintained her position as the proof of peace. But the cracks were no longer hidden, they were simply managed. Here is the truth: the industry understands better than the public. The Keys Beatz marriage is not merely a romantic union. It is a brand, a financial ecosystem, an artistic collective, and a public symbol that must remain stable at all costs. Their story has been sculpted into something larger than love. It is a mythology. Alicia Keys represents serenity, authenticity, musical integrity. Swizz represents innovation, culture, art world influence. Together they are a power couple with reach that extends far beyond music. This type of union cannot afford scandal, it cannot absorb fractures, it cannot survive without a clean narrative. Mashonda's ongoing presence, still integrated, still acknowledged, is not simply kindness, it is maintenance. Her cooperation keeps the architecture intact, her silence is the glue, her forgiveness is the emotional currency that protects the brand. The Lala Anthony rumor was the first modern test of the empire's ability to withstand pressure. And the response: swift denial, immediate artistic distraction, united public front, proved exactly what the skeptics always claimed. The blended family is not just a personal triumph, it is a professional necessity. The public sees harmony, insiders see discipline. They see a marriage that functions as an institution, a story curated to endure, a legacy insulated from human error. Alicia and Swizz cannot fall apart, not publicly. Their brand is built on unity. Their philanthropic ventures, art investments, and cross-industry influence all depend on the illusion of stability, and Mashonda's role is forever intertwined with that illusion, not as the ex-wife left behind, but as the cornerstone that allowed the reconstruction to occur. In the end, the narrative the world believes is the one they were meant to believe, that love healed betrayal, that maturity replaced bitterness, that the blended family triumphed through grace, but beneath the surface lies the more complex, unspoken truth. The Keys Beatz empire is not a love story preserved by fate, it is a structure preserved by strategy, a machine that cannot afford to collapse, a narrative managed like a business, a legacy protected through precision, and in that world, image is not just power, image is survival.